Professor Turley, thank you so much for the materials that you provided to this committee. Your legal analysis is first off, incredible in its historic foundations, but also its legal descriptions of the aspects of how do you conduct an impeachment investigation, what are the standards for an impeachment investigation, and taking, as you relate in that memo, some of the public facts that you're aware of and comparing them to congressional authority and oversight responsibilities. I think it really does help the overall discussion, and I think it gives validity to the need for this committee to move forward on an investigation as you look to historically what's happened before. Now, you made some comments in your opening statement about your description that I think are important to focus on in trying to guide our investigation. You said that it's not criminal for a president or vice president to lie. That's right. You also said that it's not criminal that Hunter Biden received, someone paying the child of a vice president for doing nothing isn't necessarily criminal. Those are my words, not yours. But you did take that next leap that using your office, taking official actions to benefit individuals or third parties to induce them to financially benefit your family would be a crime. Would it not, Professor?
It is. That's if you take a look at some of the treaties and sources that I cited, the United States has for years combated influence peddling as a prototypical form of public corruption, and much influence peddling follows that pattern. Many people now accept that what Hunter Biden did was rather raw and open influence peddling. So the only question is, was the president involved in that? And I'm not prejudging that. But there's an argument that now that you hear, that they were just selling the illusion of access. The fact is, you have to ask yourself one question. How do you know? Even if you accept that selling the illusion of access is not misconduct, how do you know it was an illusion?
Well, and that's where I'm going to go next, because there's also another concerning aspect of President Joe Biden's actions as vice president, for which there is currently an active criminal investigation, and that is his misuse of classified documents. There has been appointed by the Department of Justice, by the Attorney General, a special prosecutor for the purposes of investigating the federal crimes that could have arisen as a result from this president's misuse of classified documents. The fact that he had them at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement and the Wilmington, Delaware private residence of President Joe Biden, as well as other matters that might arise from it, places where there were other people. One of those other people happens to be Hunter Biden. Now, this committee, in its scope of this investigation, indicates that these classified materials are also relevant because, for example, the Oversight Committee has requested information regarding the classified materials discovered in the president's home where his son has resided during the time period relevant to the investigation and personal office. But the White House has not provided this information. Obviously, his son was receiving payments from Romania, Russia, Ukraine, China. If there are in those documents that relate to, for example, the prosecutor in Ukraine or Burisma itself or other aspects of Ukraine or any of the parties or individuals, obviously, that were making payments to Hunter Biden, that would be relevant, wouldn't it?
It would be relevant. One of the things I address in my testimony is I say that the most concerning line for me in this inquiry is pre-office conduct. And what I say is that there should be a type of rebuttable presumption against bringing in pre-office conduct, but there is precedent for it when it forms.
Well, and this, he was in office at the time because he wouldn't have had access to classified documents. These are not things that he did as a private citizen. He had these documents given to him. And I want to ask you, in his scope as both senator and as vice president, there's been a lot of talk that perhaps the president inadvertently ended up with these documents. Now, first off, there's an unbelievable number of documents. He's clearly a classified document hoarder, and he clearly was mishandling them. Can't you infer intent by knowledge of the law? Here, the President Biden knows how to handle classified documents and what mishandling is. Wouldn't that be attributed to his intent?
Well, that can all go to a question of establishing intent. And in all these cases, you obviously don't have a confession. I'm not too sure if the documents matter will become relevant to an impeachment inquiry. I've said earlier that the issue that concerned me about the documents is that they ended up being distributed to different sources. It appears that they went to different locations, and there are accounts of being in the president's home. And the question is, were they divided and why? But it's not clear to me whether that would amount to an impeachable offense or not.
Right, you have to make that nexus, which I have to go to the
Chairman,
next step. I've seen some of these documents as the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. I can tell you they are of the highest level of concern and threat to national security. I think we do have to get to the bottom of why was he taking these and what was he doing with them. I'll yield back.
Chair now recognizes Mr.
Chairman, I
Connolly
have a
from Virginia
unanimous
for
consent
5 minutes.
motion. Mr. Chairman, unanimous consent motion. I ask unanimous consent to introduce page 131 of the transcript of Devin Archer's testimony, where the question is asked, but he did not provide the Burisma executives with actual access to his father. The access to his father was an illusion of access.
Gentlemen's out of order. You'll have
Right.
time in your
Right.
5 minutes.
An
Chair now
illusion of
recognizes
access
Mr.
to his
Connolly from
father
Virginia
other
for
than
5
social.
minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is it admitted?
I object.
The clock's ticking, Mr. Connolly.
What's the objection based
Mr.
on?
Goldman's taking your time, Mr. Connolly. You have it's your turn to speak.
Yeah, you're taking time away from me unfairly.